All right, can you talk into the microphone?
Hello. Can you
Okay,
hear me?
now it is working.
Hey,
All
there we go.
right, hey you and welcome. My name is Mike, and this is our second time recording the intro because apparently over the Christmas break I forgot how to use the goddamn audio recording software.
Yeah, folks, let me tell you, you missed some gold.
It was gold. Unfortunately, we're never gonna get it back again. Do you want to try and inauthentically
Recapture some of the magic?
Recapture.
I don't know, man. I think it's gone.
All right. Well, basically, what the folks at home missing out on is Keith had pizza for his Christmas dinner.
I did. It was delicious. It was great.
Yeah, we had a funnier take on it, I think, the first time.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Swiftly moving on. Keith, okay, let me ask you this. Oh, what else I was saying is that I may as well repeat this, is that this is our first recording episode of 2025.
Oh, yeah.
It won't be the first one folks have heard. That was the Keddy Cabin Murders. But today, it's the first time we are recording. Very excited for 2025.
Me too, yeah.
Expect more listener stories. I say that now. If I don't keep up this promise I'm making, sue me. I don't know. Sorry, I don't know what else
I
you
wouldn't
do.
say that.
Okay. By listening to this, you signed a contract, an audio contract. Verbally, you cannot sue this podcast. Keith, any New Year's resolutions? Let me ask you that.
I don't know, man. How can you improve on perfection?
That's a good one. Yeah. Because your definition of perfection is fucking shit.
The bar is low.
Yeah.
Aim low, man. Aim low. I think I'm going to keep up. This week, I'm excited for this story that we're getting into. So in preparation for this story this week, I've started taking a lot of ice cold showers.
Very nice. You want to feel what they felt?
I want to feel what they felt.
Right.
And it's grim. I don't like it.
Yeah, no, that sucks. There's a reason why they invented hot water.
Right.
So you can take a hot water shower.
So I might keep that up. It's kind of good. It keeps you alert. When you get out of the shower, you're warm. Instead of, you get out and you're kind of cold.
Yeah.
You're getting out of cold, so you're warm again.
Oh, you're warming up.
Yeah.
All right.
So I might continue that up. It was actually your brother that got me onto this.
Right. Well, see, I don't want to take a cold water shower, though, because I'm afraid what I'll see when I look in the mirror. If you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean.
Oh, very good, Keith. I am, let the record show I'm touching my nose in a winking gesture towards Keith. Okay, as well, before we get into today's episode of the That Chapter podcast, it's time for Mike's movie review.
Yes.
I've been neglecting it the folks have been crying out for, with tears in their eyes, Mike, talk about more movies that you don't understand and have really shit takes on. Well, let the books up here. I did see a new movie, because Mike's movie reviews, I really try to stick to horror. I seen the Nosferatu.
I'm very excited.
I did. Robert Eggers' Nosferatu. I went to see it yesterday in Dublin. I seen the 35mm film version because I'm now one of those douchebags who gives a shit about film. I mean, it's the exact same movie. It's just shot I guess it's on film, so I'm not watching a digital copy. It's got little squiggles and shit on the screen. That's literally the only difference. Actually, I thought it was
worse. Want to
worse.
edit those out though?
No, because it's the film itself is what's projecting it.
Oh, okay.
It's not being a digital projector, I think.
So kind of it adds to it.
I guess so, but I actually thought it looked worse because the black sword is black. The colors, it was less.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know anything about movies. Anyways, let's get to the actual meat and potatoes of the movie. Big fan of Robert Eggers. I really liked The Witch. Loved The Witch. Loved The Lighthouse. I haven't seen The Northman.
I haven't seen either. I haven't seen great reviews about it. Well, mixed reviews.
Mixed reviews.
Yeah,
I've seen them too.
I'm very hopeful for this because I've been excited about this for the last couple of months.
Yeah, it's great.
I haven't seen it. It's great.
It's great.
Yay.
I really thought it was a fantastic movie. Really, really enjoyed it. It was one of those movies where when I watched it and when I walked out of the cinema, I was kind of like, yeah, that's pretty good. And then the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, oh, that movie was really good. That movie was amazing. It's like it kind of
stays with you.
It stays with you. It grabbed onto me like Nosferatu himself and sucked the life out of me.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. Yeah, the more I think about it, the more I really, really like it. Everything about it, the shots. It's definitely a movie that left me with a lot of questions. It's really beautifully shot. I think the actors are great. Actors do a great job. The main actor, Lily Rose Depp, she's the main character. She's great in it. Really has this real dreamlike, gothic, nightmarish quality. It feels like a fairy tale, the movie, which I really like. It's not realistic like a lot of his other movies. Well, actually, none of his movies are realistic now that I think about it. But this is more of a dreamlike quality to the entire movie, which I thought was great. Nosferatu, cool. I have never seen the other Nosferatu stories, so I didn't actually know the plot of it. All I knew was that it was like a shitty copy knockoff Dracula.
Yeah.
So from what I gathered is they wanted to make, in the 1920s, they wanted to make a Dracula movie, but they couldn't get the copyright.
Yeah, so just change the names.
Literally, that's all they did. They were like, instead of Count Dracula, he's Count Orlok, and it's set in Germany, not in England, and it's instead of Jonathan Parker or Harker and Mina Harker, it's Thomas and Ellen Hunter or something. You know, like literally it's like the shittest kind of thing. We'll just change it slightly. So that's all I knew about it was that it was, and he's like, you know, he's like a bald with the fangs and shit like that. He's not like handsome like Dracula. But he's really good. I thought it was really scary. Okay, cool. Very scary movie.
I haven't seen any images of what Bill Skarsgård looks like in it. But,
you don't, even when you see him in the movie, I think 90% of the time he's very shadowed. It's supposed to, he's like really evil, creepy. Like, he's not like this charming Dracula figure at all. He's like this monstrous evil figure.
Okay,
And he's great. It's done by the guy, Skarsgård. Skarsgård. He's great.
So I have seen
Oh no, it's not Dracula. It's Nosferatu. Even I'm thinking of Dracula now. Like, literally,
sued, man.
When you're watching the movie, you're like, oh, that's Van Helsing. I mean, you know, he's not called Van Helsing.
Yes.
You just think Willem Dafoe. He's Van Helsing.
Yeah.
I don't know what his fucking shitty knockoff name is. I'm just gonna call him Van Helsing. Fake Van Helsing. Van Fakesling. So anyway, Nosferatu. 2 thumbs up from the mic. Go see it wherever it's showing, folks. Rush out to your theaters. Tell them Mike sent you.
Okay.
You know, what do you ring Robert Eggers and tell him Mike give him a thumbs up and maybe he'll put me in his next movie.
Ooh, that'd be good.
But all right, so enough of that.
Okay.
Let's get into today's story, folks. Today we are tackling
the mysterious death
of Rodney David Marks. This old one, it takes us to a place we've definitely not been to before, and I would be very surprised as a podcast that focuses on murder, mayhem, the unsolved, the horror, the creepy stuff. I don't think we'll ever go back.
Probably not, no.
No. Maybe not.
Well, one of my all-time favorite survival stories from it, do you know Shackleton with the endurance?
Oh yeah, that's great.
Well, no one dies, but it's still an amazing survival story.
I think that would be a good topic to handle someday. It
would be good, wouldn't
It's kind of, it has horror elements to it, so I think it comes under the umbrella of the That Chapter podcast. It's got some spooky, you know, horrible experiences. Yeah. Okay, why not?
We'll do it.
We'll lash it in. All right.
We talked ourselves into it.
So today we were talking about Antarctica, or the South Pole. Which, today, in today's world, it has a population that varies widely, from somewhere between 4,000 to 5,000 mark in the summer, before plummeting to less than 1,000 people over the winter season. And that is where an unsolved, mysterious death, murder, perchance, took place. Think of The Thing.
Yeah.
We should just do a retelling of The Thing, but we act like it's real, because we only do real stories here.
Oh, that sounds good.
I kind of actually want to... Do you want to watch The Thing?
I do want to watch The Thing, yeah.
I think we should watch The Thing and then come back and record a podcast.
Like classic sort of... what's that when you have like more like practical effects?
Yeah.
Like The Evil Dead.
Yeah.
What was it, the 80s?
Yeah, it was 80s. Yeah. Carpenter. It's a great movie. That's a horror movie. We should just have a horror. Yeah, exactly. Folks, we'll be back. That was great. Wow, what a movie. So those few thousand people that live there basically year-round, they're split across 66 different scientific research bases. The exact number of those bases, much like the population itself, it fluctuates depending on the time of the year and the requirements of the scientific community. The largest and best known is the American-funded and run McMurdo Station, which lies on the southern tip of Ross Island, which technically belongs to New Zealand, an 8-hour flight, with 1,000 inhabitants in the summer and 200 in the winter.
McMurdo Station, that's where The Thing was based.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. Yeah. Look at you with the facts.
I'm right, yeah.
Holy shit, Keith.
It's what I do.
You wowed me. You chime in with your little facts and you wow me each and every time.
It's literally all I do.
Well, you're an invaluable part of That Chapter podcast now. You sunk your claws in too deep. Much like Nosferatu with his facts. Taking it back.
Full circle.
However, Keith, where The Thing, allegedly, as you proclaimed, took place, that's not where we're going. We're actually going 841 miles inland from McMurdo to the much smaller Amundsen Scott South Pole Station. Despite 841 miles not being that extreme a distance in normal circumstances, we're definitely not dealing with normal circumstances today, folks. Access to the Amundsen Scott Station is only possible by using the SPOT, or South Pole Traverse System. SPOT is a dedicated tractor train that is responsible for hauling the necessary and required goods and equipment needed to survive and complete their scientific observations. It uses purpose-built specialized sleds and takes about 26 days to get from one base to the other, or 52 days there and back again. So if you need shit, buckle in. You're going to be waiting for a while.
Big time. Yeah, the Amundsen Scott South Pole Station, it's as you're saying, it's super remote. It's actually the southernmost station in Antarctica. So do you know that South Pole marker? Do you know the one with the striped barbershop pole and it's got like the globe on top? This is the South Pole?
No.
I'm sure you've seen it.
Have I? No, I don't think so.
I gotta show you. Google there.
Okay.
Just Google South Pole.
Google it there. Okay. South
Pole Pole.
South Pole Pole.
South Pole Pole.
South Pole Pole.
Yeah, that one.
That?
Yeah.
That's at the South Pole? It's kind of shite now. Don't you think there'd be something better than that?
Right.
Big statue or something.
Yeah.
Folks, here, listen, if you haven't seen it yourself, go and have a Google there now. It's
bother.
not great. Yeah, I wouldn't even bother. Yeah, exactly. Well, to describe to you, it looks like, it's a pole that looks maybe a couple of feet high, red and white, kind of like a barber's pole with, I guess, a silver metallic globe on top. And that's it. Surrounded by some flags and...
That's it, yeah.
That's it, yeah.
But that is the South Pole. But that's literally outside of the station that we're going to today.
Okay.
So you literally can't go further south.
You can't go any souther before you start coming back.
That's it. At least that's what the round earthers would have you believe.
Those liars and fiends.
Open your eyes, sheeple. But there's actually 2 ways to travel to the station.
Two ways?
So there's the spot tractors, which you mentioned, which journeys from McMurdo Station to Amundsen Scott Station around 2 to 4 times a year. Mm-hmm. They're not really used for personnel transport. They're more used for delivering essential supplies.
Shite.
Yeah, like food, medicine, but the main thing they deliver is fuel. And the tractors, they tow up to like 100,000 gallons or 378,000 litres of diesel fuel each trip to the station's generators. But you can also access the station by plane, and this is how most of the station's personnel arrive.
Okay.
However, due to like extreme weather conditions, flights, they're still pretty limited. So there's about 20 to 30 flights per year. And during the Antarctic winter months, so March to September, because they have opposite seasons, there's no flights at all. So it's actually easier to get home from the International Space Station than it is from the Amundsen Scott South Pole Station.
Wow.
During these like no flight times.
That's mad, isn't it?
Isn't it? It's only like you're isolated.
Yeah. Holy shit. There could be a thing down there. Nothing, ain't no help gonna come. Damn.
No one's getting to you.
It's scary down there.
It is. It's terrifying.
Yeah. So on May 12th, 2000, 32-year-old astrophysicist Rodney Marks' work had been going smoothly throughout the season so far. And that Friday had been an ordinary day for everyone at the station, when out of nowhere, Rodney began experiencing mysterious symptoms that began with blurry vision and progressively got worse and more concerning. His symptoms came on suddenly as he and a colleague were walking back from the Astro building, where Rodney spent most of his working hours. They were walking from there back to the main South Pole base, and this was in May, so it would have been, early winter. It would have been pretty damn dark there. Yeah. And cold. I believe it's cold in Antarctica.
No way.
If you can believe it, folks, you heard it here first.
I believe it.
Thank you. Rodney's role at the South Pole Station was as the winter over scientist for the Antarctic Submillimeter Telescope and Remote Observatory Project, or ASTRO. Basically, use a big old telescope so they could see UFOs, aliens winking at you, all those good stuff.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Flashing you.
Flashing you, show me your little alien tadgers. Rodney had deployed to the South Pole Station in October of 1999. And this was his second winter at the Amundsen Scott Station, having spent the 98th season there for the Spirex. Oh my, what's with these acronyms that are like really hard to say? But basically, it's another infrared telescope type. You know yourself, like
Science
you don't,
stuff.
you know what I'm talking about. I don't gotta explain a goddamn thing to you. You know what I'm talking
I'm not
about.
gonna hold your hand through this. You got
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're a big boy. So of the 50 winter residents at the base, Rodney was one of only 10 scientists, the other 40 people being technician and maintenance workers responsible for the day-to-day running of the base.
God, it's mad how many people they need just to keep the base running, isn't it?
Yeah, it seems like whatever you have multiplied by like 4, and that's how many people need to support what the actual scientists are doing, which is wild.
I guess that makes sense, like just to make it somewhat habitable, but like it's like minus, I think around wintertime it gets down to like minus 70 degrees. So
Crazy.
Like, yeah, lazy side has just been weighed on.
I know, exactly. Can I go? How do I get in on that?
Right.
I was like, yeah, that's great. That sounds like it rocks. So that day, May 12th, 2000, he had visited the South Pole Station's medical center 3 different times in one day. On the first occasion, Rodney told Dr. Robert Thompson that he was struggling to catch his breath and had vomited blood around 5:30 that morning. That led to Dr. Thompson to try and, give Rodney a checkup. Doctor made a note that Rodney Marks seemed, quote, nervous, anxious, and upset, and had what appeared to be 2 puncture marks the type left by hypodermic needles on his lower arm. Now importantly, he didn't question Rodney about those hypodermic needle marks on his arm. After a short time in his clinic, Rodney seemed to recover quite well, and the doctor sent him back to his room at the station to rest up, but also told him to come back if he felt worse. It didn't take long, however, before Rodney returned, but once again, he seemed to improve after a few minutes, and was released a second time after being given oxygen and Valium. He's just pulling a sickie now this time. Dirty Rodney. Then he returned to the clinic a short time later, this time, however, for the final time. In addition to the shortness of breath, Rodney's health had deteriorated quite drastically, and he was now complaining of severe pains all over his body. Dr. Thompson gave him a shot of Haldol to try and help him relax. It seemed to work, as, just like on his previous visits, Rodney's situation seemed to improve after a few minutes, and he appeared to calm down and was chatting away to the doctors and the other staff assessing him. Then, just 2 hours later, for seemingly no reason the doctor could observe, Rodney's heart just stopped. Despite the base's emergency trauma team immediately performing CPR, even putting him on a ventilator and making all possible efforts to resuscitate him, they couldn't bring him back. Rodney Marks was dead. So, who was Rodney Marks? Well, Rodney David Marks was born on the 13th of March 1968 in Geelong, Australia, to parents Paul and Rye Marks. Growing up with 2 sisters in the... You like Geelong?
I like Geelong.
Yeah, I thought you did. It sounded like you're giggling like a schoolgirl over there. Growing up with 2 sisters in the coastal town, in many ways, Rodney was your typical Aussie bloke. Watching Aussie rules football, bombing around the beaches, surfing, and of course, drinking a can of Foster's, mate.
Nice.
I hear they don't really drink Foster's in Australia. What? Do you know that? I'm sure you and I, and maybe a lot of our listeners, are familiar with Foster's beer, Australian beer, big blue can, Red F.
I'm shocked that they don't drink it.
And it's like, that's their whole thing, is like, we're an Australian beer, and it's like, apparently in Australia,
they don't drink it.
It's like not popular at all.
That's shocking to me. I feel like that's as shocking if an Australian found out we don't drink Guinness.
Yeah. Or like we barely drank Guinness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently, like, it's a beer that is just not popular in Australia. It's like really, it's like the Australian beer that's popular outside. Here's another thing.
Okay.
The pointer, folks, coming out. Did you know that Outback Steakhouse, the restaurants,
I've heard of it.
Yeah. And they're Australia themed. Yeah. Invented by an American. No Australians involved in Outback at all.
That's not that shocking, actually.
Well, Keith, way to shoot me down, bro. Thanks. You're supposed to try and make me look cool in front of the audience.
Whoa, that was crazy.
Second take was
Use
better.
That one.
All right. Well, just remember, okay? That was pretty good. Don't do what you did again.
Okay, got it.
All right.
Just keep using that take. Just clip it in wherever.
Okay. Yeah. Now, back to the podcast. So, Rodney Marks, he also had a brilliant intellect when it came to his academic studies. That's where Rodney really shone. Very smart guy, earning himself a full scholarship to a prestigious school, but he was also kind of an alternative kid at heart. He liked to dress like a goth, he played guitar, he sang in an alt band, he was kind of, just one of those lads. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Sounds like my kind of guy.
He did. You were kind of like an emo kid as a teen.
Still am a heart, man.
You are. I know. You had the fringe and everything. Yeah, good old Keith. You definitely got to put one of those pictures on the Instagram someday.
There is plenty.
We got to find our worst, both of our worst, the most embarrassing cringe pics. They're from the blunder years, as they call them.
That shouldn't take long.
Yeah, no. I dislike this idea I came up with already.
I feel I'm currently in my blunder years. Yeah. I'm not out of them.
Still going downhill. Rodney even spent some time in the south of France, where he picked up the language almost as a matter of course. And so, almost with ease, he received his bachelor's degree with first-class honours from the University of Melbourne and a doctorate in physics from the University of New South Wales. He wrote his PhD thesis on how perfect a place the South Pole site was for astrophysical observations. His dream always being to one day be able to play a role in the observations there. He first visited the continent in 1994. It was only for a measly 2 weeks, but that was it. Rodney, me had to go back. He returned for the 97-98 season and was wholeheartedly looking forward to his second winter over. Rodney was described by one of his colleagues as being unflappable and relaxed, as well as having a serene The way people describe me sounds like he's just perfect.
Right? He's like a cool guy.
He drinks beer, watches Aussie Rule football, goes surfing, probably gets cheeks, and chicks. You know what I'm saying? He's in a band. He's an emo. Yeah. He's like really smart. He's an astrophysicsist.
What more do you want?
I know.
What a catch.
Sound like somebody might have motive to murder him, though. That's the thing.
Bit of jealousy.
Yeah, no, that's why you can't be too good at anything. That's why I'm shit at everything.
That makes sense.
Exactly, because otherwise somebody might want to try and they'll, catch her in the rrimey.
Ah,
you know what I'm saying?
Okay, yeah.
See?
Yeah. I see where you're going. Listen.
Always be a little bit shit. ABS, always be shit. Rodney appeared to be your typical quiet, thoughtful type. At least until you really got to know him, and then it became very clear how friendly and sociable he was. He could even be flamboyant at times, like with his choice of hairstyle. There weren't too many other scientists walking around the base with shoulder-length purple hair.
He also managed to start a band on base as well.
Hell yeah!
Right? So their name was... the name isn't great. So their name was Fanny Pack and the Big Nancy Boys, which...
That sounds almost offensive, doesn't it?
It's not great. Yeah. I'm sure when they picked it... I say it was a name where they were like, great, it's like, that's a funny name. It will never leave Antarctica. Yeah. And now we're talking about other podcasts.
Hell yeah, no, that's people are hearing. Wow. That's an interesting choice of name. They couldn't have gone for like some kind of South Pole pun.
Yeah.
The South Pole dancers, or I don't know.
Oh, that's pretty good, yeah. Yeah, it's not the name I would have picked.
Yeah.
Probably would have gone with something completely different. Like the opposite. The backpack and the small, hard men. No, that's worse.
Yeah, no, that's the worst. Yeah. Moving on. He was also known for his sense of humor, a dry wit that sometimes got him in a bit of trouble when a sarcastic comment was taken the wrong way. One thing, though, everyone agreed on was that when it came to Rodney Marks, he didn't have a malicious bone in his body. On the few occasions that his ironic sense of humor caused offense, Rodney was always quick to, apologize and, make sure he was only kidding around. No matter how kind Rodney was and how far he was willing to go to make things right, it does leave open the possibility, however remote, that Rodney offended the wrong person. Maybe he just said the wrong thing to the wrong person, and that mistake cost him his life. Because of the extreme remote nature of the station, it's just not possible to be able to order an autopsy. Generally, people don't just drop dead at the Antarctic stations, though there have been some exceptions to that. After all, in addition to the stringent mental health screening potential residents and workers have to go through, they also have to pass a physical exam to actually get there, work there, and stay there long term. So the population down in these places, they tend to be like super healthy, healthier than the average, population. Elsewhere in the world, when there's going to be an elongated, period of time between the death of the subject and the post-mortem exam, you'd usually put them in a mortuary, which is refrigerated. So you can see where this is going. In this case, when a scientist at a remote Antarctic station passed away, the body was placed outside, exposed to the elements and allowed to freeze. And Rodney's death came close to the start of the season, so that meant his body was on ice, literally for almost 6 months, before it could be taken by the Spot train and then flown back to Christchurch, New Zealand. This is New Zealand territory after all, and so it would be up to authorities to investigate. For such a place that poses such obvious dangers to human life, Antarctica, from the time it was first sighted by a Russian expedition in January 1820, it has boasted an official murder rate of, drumroll please, 0. 0 people have been murdered there. There have been some rumblings of a murder at Vostok Station back in 1959, after a game of chess between two scientists got violent, where they actually ended up banning the game of chess ever after. They should have that worldwide, if you ask me. Now, reports of the incident, they're sketchy to say the least, with some saying that the victim of the attack recovered, others saying he was killed by the man with the axe. So there's like no real confirmation that a murder actually happened.
Yeah, I think it's one of these stories that kind of became legend, especially with that, like the chess banning. I wasn't able to find any record of chess actually being banned on Antarctica, but what I did find though was that in 1978, Soviet polar explorers held their first team chess championship on the ice continent. So It appears just like the chess story, the whole murder might have been just a rumor. However, even though there's no record of murder, there is a record of attempted murder.
Hell yeah.
So in 2018, a Russian...
Recently enough, wow.
Yeah, right. A Russian scientist engineer, Sergei Savitsky, aged 55, stabbed a welder at a Russian research center on King George Island because, and I quote, he was fed up with the man telling me the ending of his books.
That's pretty good.
Right. So the two had been working together at the station for about 6 months and they just couldn't stand each other. Things finally boiled over in the station's canteen on October.
I love the way they hated each other. It's like, I know I'm going to ruin his day, spoil every book he's reading.
Yeah, I'm sure like just you've got so little up there, and like you've only so many books you can bring up.
I love the way he'd probably walk by and see him reading a book, so he furiously runs to the library and like speed reads the last like 5 pages.
Just read the last page. Dumbledore dies. What?
No.
So they finally boiled over in the station's canteen on October 9th, 2018, when the victim suggested that Savitsky dance on the dining room table for money. So instead, Savitsky, he responded by stabbing him multiple times with a kitchen knife. Luckily, the man survived after he was flown to a hospital in Chile. So you might think this is shocking now, but alcohol is believed to be involved in the altercation.
No shit.
Right.
You lie.
Savitsky, he was detained in a small wooden Eastern Orthodox Russian church on top of a rocky hill on Antarctica's King George Island for 10 days before being deported back to Russia. And I wasn't able to find anything once he got back to Russia. I don't know why. Just there was no reports or anything.
Wow, yeah.
Couldn't find anything.
Disappeared.
Yeah.
And so back to even earlier than that, in the year 2000, when we're telling our story, the Rodney Marks story, a couple of months earlier than May, when Rodney Marks mysteriously passed away. On January 8th, 2000, a 43-year-old Canadian man named John G. Bisiada had died suddenly of what turned out to, well, it was basically a massive pulmonary embolism. The tragic consequence of a blood clot formed when John broke his leg, and which had shaken loose then and travelled up to his lung, which blocked the blood flow. Bisiada worked at McMurdo, not the South Pole Station, but with the community around the Antarctic bases being as small and tight as it is, the death of anyone, especially as sudden as John's, well, it was always going to make far more of an impact than if it had happened at basically anywhere else. So, when it was quickly followed by another unexpected, and so far unexplained death, the death of Rodney Marks, you can imagine how the sullen mood, how basically upset people around the bases would have been, not just at the South Pole Station. And that mood could spread and hang around for quite a long time. I mean, this was an early winter, you still got a lot of darkness to go. Not to mention that his body literally sat outside waiting until it could be collected, a constant reminder of the tragedy and the mystery. So if you think that sounds a bit cold and scientific, by the way, so did several of Rodney's colleagues and friends. They actually went out of their way to gather up and scrounge up enough oak from around the base to fashion a casket for their friend. They even created a brass inlay marked with the constellation Scorpio, Rodney's favourite, and used a sled to take his body as far south as possible where Rodney could rest. Staring up at the stars, he'd spent his too short life studying. When his body was eventually moved, his friends made sure to leave in its place an Australian flag, just as a little reminder that a piece of Rodney will always remain there. Once the weather had cleared up enough for finally his body to be repatriated, almost 6 months later, Rodney was returned to New Zealand, and soon after an autopsy was performed by Dr. Martin Sage. Those familiar with the situation had been expecting something similar to the death of John G. Bisiada, an undiagnosed and unavoidable medical condition, just a tragic accident. There's really nothing you can do, just a tragic twist of fate. So, when Rodney Marks' cause of death came back as, wait for it, methanol poisoning, murder was in the air, and everybody was baffled and scared. No recreational drugs, by the way, were found in his system.
What's really frustrating about this is that the base, they had an automatic medical analyzer that could have detected signs of methanol poisoning within Mark's blood, but it wasn't working.
Classic. Yeah. It's like the ice cream machine in McDonald's. Just never working when you need it.
It is exact same, actually. So the device's battery had died sometime before, and even if it had been turned on, it would have taken several hours to calibrate it, time which, Rodney didn't have. And we'll touch a bit more on the negligence in how he was treated when he was sick later, though.
During the day, when he kept going back to the medical station, was feeling sickly, and then he'd clear up, and then they'd, off you pot.
It does feel like more could be done.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that. We'll get into that.
So methanol and its derivatives like formaldehyde are widely used in industries around the world for hundreds of reasons. It was and is freely available and accessible around that station, the South Pole Station, and primarily it was used as a cleaning agent. It's definitely dangerous and can easily be deadly if consumed, like in Rodney Marks' case. But the thing was, Rodney, he knew that. He was a very intelligent guy, and this was like, it would be one of those things which it would have the skull and crossbones. Like, it'd be like drinking bleach. Like, you just know not to do that. So how the hell did it get into his system and in a high enough measure to prove fatal? Well, in fact, just 10 milliliters of methanol ingested can cause irreversible blindness. 100 milliliters is more than enough to be fatal, give or take a few milliliters, depending on the person's size. But Rodney had consumed 150 milliliters, the equivalent of a small wine glass worth of methanol. There's no way that could accidentally get into him.
Right, yeah.
That had to be purposely done. That's a lot of... That's a small wine glass like of a poisonous substance. That's a lot of poison.
It's quite a bit. Here's an interesting one for you.
Oh.
So one of the antidotes for methanol poisoning is ethanol, which is alcohol.
Really? So you take ethanol to cure methanol?
It's one of the cures.
Okay.
So I actually read up on it was an MD website type thing. And so this is what it quotes. So begin to give the person high doses of ethanol, i.e. whiskey, vodka, etc. immediately. A person's liver will process ethanol first instead of the methanol, delaying the onset of methanol poisoning and allow for more time to process methanol out of the person's system.
Keith, you know what? I just realized that I took a shitload of methanol before we started recording this podcast.
That's why I drink.
Get me the whiskey.
It's better safe than sorry. You never know. But I guess we should say, if you do suspect methanol poisoning, just disregard everything I've said.
Yeah,
go see a doctor.
Just go. Keith, there's no medical training that I'm aware of. Just go see a doctor.
No, I don't.
Yeah. So the first theory to be looked at was that Rodney Marks had fallen into a depression and had taken his own life, that he had died by suicide. In the summer, Antarctica becomes the land where the sun never sets. But that means the opposite when winter comes. It's 6 months pitch black night. So for that very reason, those applying to live and work at the Antarctic stations not only need to have, relevant professional qualifications, but they also need to be screened for their susceptibility towards conditions like general anxiety, depression, SAD, seasonal affective disorder, that kind of thing. They need to make sure you're not going to spiral into depression because you ain't got the sun. The idea of Rodney Marks using methanol as a means to end his own life, it's been raised, but I think it's more down to thoroughness, as it just doesn't seem to be real. He just didn't seem like that kind of guy. And plus, there's simply far too many easier and less horrible ways if you wanted to end things. Everyone agreed that he showed no signs, even to those closest to him, of being depressed or struggling with his mental health. Rodney's life was going about as well as anybody could have hoped for. Not only was he continuing to have great success in his professional life, with his work yielding fantastic results for the project he was working on, but Rodney's personal life seemed to be flying high too. Where for many the idea of loneliness and being away from their romantic partner likely to be a big issue that would keep them from signing up for winter, Rodney didn't have to worry about it. He'd recently become engaged to a young maintenance specialist named Sonia Walter, who was also spending the winter season at the station, having signed up specifically so they could be together. The two were easy to spot around the base as she dyed her hair green to go with Rodney's purple. Rodney had also become close friends with several other scientists and workers. Overall, he was considered a popular, likable guy. And I mean, as we said even earlier, talking about growing up, he fell in love with the Antarctica. It was his dream to be here. He was he was living the dream. It was his dream job. He, had his fiance there with him. It just seems very unlikely. I mean, at the end of the day, obviously depression can hit anybody and you never really know the signs. But this really, it seemed like he had everything he wanted.
But he also went to the doctor to find out what was wrong with him. It doesn't make sense for him to consume methanol to kill himself.
Right.
Completely forget about it.
Yeah.
And then go to the doctor 3 times because he wasn't feeling great for some reason.
Exactly.
Even if
he took it and realized, oh shit, I shouldn't have done that, he'd be like, maybe you should check if I have methanol poisoning,
right.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's a good point.
Sure, what brought it up, so.
Exactly, yeah.
I don't think it's that.
No, for sure. So the theory that Rodney somehow accidentally imbibed the methanol it's an oddly popular one. Now, I don't know how it could be that someone as smart as Rodney, though, could accidentally ingest enough methanol to kill him, but it's been pointed out he was known to keep dozens of bottles of various liquids on his desk and in his workspace. Those included drinking alcohol, various spirits, and whatnot, but they also included several, definitely not for drinking liquids. So was it possible that Rodney had grabbed a bottle and taken a good swig, but accidentally picked the wrong bottle? Unfortunately, because of issues we'll dig into shortly, the scene wasn't preserved, and the contents of each bottle secured. Again, though, that seems unlikely to me that he would grab the wrong bottle. I mean, I don't know what methanol tastes like, but would you not even notice just by drinking it that it would taste odd?
Don't know. I think they might be similar. I don't know.
So, like, I mean...
I have a theory about it.
Okay.
I'll get to it now in a second.
You chom that a bit, folks, to get into it. So then there's the idea that he intentionally drank methanol, but not with the intent to end his own life. While Rodney's life was indeed going well, there was one thing he'd always struggled with his entire life. Rodney had been diagnosed with Tourette's syndrome at a young age and had always struggled to control the condition. One of his close friends at the base, Andrew Walsh, said that as brilliant as Rodney was, he relied heavily on alcohol to suppress the tics caused by Tourette's. His tics were very minor, though, like in comparison to some other people. They manifested in slight twitches and the occasional long, deep inhale through his nose, but many who knew Rodney said they only knew he had the condition because he told them he had the condition. Otherwise, they never would have realized he had Tourette syndrome. But yet again, I don't think he would drink methanol to try and, like, dampen down his Tourette's syndrome. That doesn't seem to make sense at all.
Yeah, kind of what we're getting back to earlier. So later investigations, they revealed that alcohol and drug abuse, they were pretty rampant on the base. So there was even reports of marijuana being grown in the air ducts within the base, along with, so a lot of alcohol shipped in. It was all free to the people who were living there. But some people on the base, they also made what was called toast juice.
Toast juice. Tell me more about this toast juice. I'm curious.
So initially, toast juice, it was considered. It's basically, it was a homemade alcohol. It was a home brew that they were doing, that they were distilling.
Okay.
And it was considered as a possibility it was dead, but it was discounted as the possible source of methanol. It was brewed on site, and a later investigation, a bottle of toast juice was tested. So that bottle you're mentioning, that they swabbed it. It was found that to be 71% pure alcohol, so no methanol.
Oh right, the bottle's on his desk. Yeah.
Yeah, the bottle's on desk, so there was no methanol detected within it. However, when making alcohol, methanol, it's a natural byproduct of the fermentation process, and it's then separated from ethanol, so the drinking alcohol, during the distillation process. So methanol has like a lower boiling point than ethanol, so during the initial phase of distillation, when the temperature is around 65 degrees Celsius, it's close to methanol's boiling point, methanol vaporizes first, and then is collected and then discarded.
Okay.
So what if the methanol that was collected was put in like an unlabeled container and then accidentally consumed, might be just on his desk. So this might have explained why no methanol was found in the bottle they tested.
Right.
So the actual alcohol bottle was fine, had no methanol.
Yeah,
that
because it was already,
But the methanol might have been just put into some container. Now, this is just a theory. I have no proof that Rodney was making any of this toast juice or that he drank from a random unlabeled container. All I'm saying is that from the reports I read, toast juice was made on the base and accidents, they can happen.
Right.
And also in 2022, so home brewing of beer at the Australian Antarctic stations was actually banned. Now, they did say that this ban is not a response to any particular incident, but rather to create a comfortable and safe community atmosphere on the research stations.
They were so eager to get Fosters that they had to make it themselves. I told you, see, they don't drink it in Australia. They
no, Foster, crunch!
I need my toast juice.
So, it's a possibility. You never know.
Well, there you go. That's a good theory. That's a good one. Let's keep going. Let's see what else we can dig up.
Okay.
So finally, there's the possibility that we've all been itching to get to, murder. Any investigation into Rodney's death has been hindered by the simple fact that, well, to put it bluntly, Antarctic law is very strange, and Rodney's death is, as one detective put it, a jurisdictional clusterfuck. Thanks to the Antarctic Treaty, the continent of Antarctica, it doesn't fall under any one country's laws, because technically no country owns it or has colonized it or whatever you call it.
Yep.
So Rodney Marks was an Australian citizen who died at an American base on land claimed by New Zealand. So it's like, who takes charge? Does New Zealand? But it was an American. But he was Australia. It's like, who should take charge of this? And nobody could answer that question. Antarctica doesn't have a judicial system or a dedicated law enforcement agency, though some residents are deputized, but very rarely required, other than to break up the odd drunken fight. After all, if they did arrest somebody, there's no way to prosecute them on the continent. So basically, if somebody's acting up, you'd, I don't know, give him a punch and tell him to settle down. Like, there's nothing you can do. It's you can't, there's no conviction here.
Stop that!
Yeah, exactly. Don't do that again.
Crikey.
No more fusters for you. So, strictly speaking, the laws of each individual's resident country still apply to them while they're in Antarctica. So, if it was decided that Rodney Marks was murdered, it would fall under the purview of Australia's legal system. But just getting his death to be considered a homicide, if that was able to be agreed that the case should be investigated as a crime, basically then there's a whole other can of worms that comes into play with the significant amount of time having passed and the huge lack of preservation of potential evidence. Basically, even if they could agree on anything, they couldn't even start on where to begin the investigation. So naturally, not having a police force and facilities to collect and handle the scene properly, coupled with Rodney's death automatically being considered tragic but very likely of natural causes, basically meant that any legal investigation would be massively handicapped throughout, if not just downright impossible. The bases at the pole have a culture made up of a strange mix of a Star Trek-like ideal society, bringing together nations and races in the peaceful pursuit of scientific knowledge that the Antarctic Treaty imagines, and then also the chaos and lawlessness of the Wild West. Food and drink, including alcohol, they're free, and everyone at the base has a part to play. You're either part of the scientific mission or our maintenance crew keeping everything running. Then there's the dark underbelly, and the base becomes a place where binge drinking is almost an epidemic, and sexist, homophobic, and even outright abusive behavior is accepted and rarely punished. Rodney's own fiancée, Sonia, had written in a journal entry about how many women working at the base said it was easy to just find a guy to hook up with at the beginning of the season, simply just to keep other predatory men at bay. The men at the base referred to them as ice wives. Damn.
I was not expecting to learn that things got so hot and heavy.
This is like prison.
Right? Yeah.
It's like you have to be a prison wife, like
I know, right?
Just to get protection from the other men.
It's lawless down there. I was looking into this and I found an article about it. So apparently casual hookups, they're pretty common down in Antarctica. One of the scientists with a decade of experience on US bases described it as heedless sex.
Hell yeah.
And there was another scientist they interviewed who was from one of the Australian Antarctic stations, and he said, on other stations and in the summer, there is more people. So yeah, they screw a lot. But not here on this station, which I think he covered that up pretty well.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
The wife was reading.
Yeah.
But apparently there's a small but exclusive group as well called the Seven Club. So basically people who've gotten lucky on 7 continents.
Nice.
Where, this really sounds like an amazing trash TV show, doesn't it?
It does, man. Reality TV.
The Real Ice Wives of Antarctica.
Oh my!
I would watch that.
I would watch
I'd
that.
watch shit about that. That'd be great.
Goddamn. TV producers, if you're listening, you legally have to make me and Keith producers on this show because we just came up with this idea. Copyrighted. That sounds awesome. That'd be a good show. So this is most likely the real reason that nobody really wants to dig into what life is really like at the bases, and therefore an investigation into what really happened. Sadly, the lack of transparency also leads to more empty speculation and conspiracy theories, further clouding what is already a difficult mystery to solve. How did the methanol get in his system? Was it injected? He had hypodermic needle marks on his arm. He kept on going back to the thing, and then he just dropped it. There's so many. It's such a weird
a lot of unanswered
story.
Questions,
Yeah. So jurisdiction is definitely the biggest issue in the case, with the base being US owned and operated, but sitting on land claimed by New Zealand. The official investigation into Rodney's death is currently being led by New Zealand detective Grant Wormald. Detective Wormald has been pretty upfront about the US government's lack of help with the case. Out of the 49 Americans present at the base when Rodney died, only 13 agreed to be interviewed. The interviews weren't even real interviews, due to the 49 other people present at the station now being scattered around the world and various continents. Basically, it would be impossible without huge resources to actually interview each and every one of them. So as a solution, Detective Wormald put together a nice little questionnaire, tick the box for them to fill in.
Little Google form.
Yeah, exactly. A questionnaire that the National Science Foundation insisted on having the final say on which questions may be asked. Eventually, Detective Wormald was able to construct a questionnaire they accepted, he sent it out, but only got 13 responses, going back. The US government apparently carried out their own investigation into what happened to Rodney, but they have never made their findings public or been willing to share them with the New Zealand government. Detective Wormald has said publicly He believes the lack of interaction from those present at the base when Rodney died is down basically due to pressure from the National Science Foundation and not wanting to miss out on future employment opportunities in what is a tiny community. Everybody knows each other there. Fortunately, we do know a few things thanks to a couple of people who have spoken out. Dr. William Silva was the base doctor and counterpart of Dr. Thompson at a neighbouring station. It was his job to review Dr. Thompson's notes and response to Rodney's death. He has publicly stated that he found some of his colleagues' actions to be questionable, to say the least. Most notably was his lack of questioning Rodney when it came to the 2 mysterious puncture wounds on his arm. Granted, Rodney was in pain and highly agitated at the time, but any doctor would usually ask questions before injecting a patient with something as powerful as Haldol. Dr. Thompson has noted that on Rodney's first visit, he told him he hadn't drank alcohol for around 38 hours, causing Dr. Thompson to consider alcohol withdrawal as the most likely reason for Rodney's discomfort. Unfortunately, this further masked his real problem and ate into precious time. So officially, Wormhole's investigation was never closed and is still ongoing, but so much time has passed since Rodney's death, 25 years as we are releasing this podcast, we'll likely never know for sure if this truly was the first murder in Antarctica, or, wait for it, those mysterious pyramids that are in Antarctica where the Nazis and the aliens are trying to take over the globe.
Of course. Wait, you're not meant to tell people that, man.
Ah, shit, the reptilians are listening. Fuck. Cut that out. Right, there you go. The first murder, maybe. I mean, listen, I talk a lot about true crime, and it's the only solution that I believe or makes sense.
I'm pretty sure I know who did it. And it's pretty obvious when you think about it.
Should I get our lawyers to review this podcast episode before it goes out to the masses?
No, I think they should know. And like the clue is in the name.
Keith's coming from.
Killer whales.
Oh,
they are around there.
How did we not see that the whole time?
It's so obvious. It's so clear. Yeah. Who knows?
You never know.
Strange things.
We will never know. We will never know. I think it's either aliens, killer whales, or the injection marks are just a weird thing that doesn't make any sense.
Weird. Yeah, I don't know why you had them. Yeah.
Yeah.
It does seem like a huge cover up to like what you're saying. Like they don't want like it to get out. Like so far, like all I knew about Antarctica was before it was like it's full of scientists down there doing really good work. Yeah, and I'm like, geez, they're growing weed down there.
They're banging 420, puff pass. Yeah. They're just having a great time. Lawless.
I want to go.
It's like a big open air brothel / bar / party zone / prison kind of.
Right. Yeah. Sounds like a wild time.
Yeah.
I did not know anything about it, so I'm sure they didn't want that getting out there.
Yeah.
So I'm sure like further investigations. What else is that going to uncover?
Yeah, you know? For sure.
Who knows? Yeah, it does seem like they're cover up, but who knows?
Who knows? All right, folks. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the That Chapter podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. You know what? Do yourself a favor. Go out and get a can of Foster's and tell them Mike sent you. All right, Keith. That will wrap it up for this one.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. You want to do your catchphrase?
Oh, I'll say it.
There you go. All right. Thanks, folks. Bye.
I'm sorry, I'm still cracking up about that. I just keep thinking about it. It's so stupid.
You can tell we haven't recorded a podcast in a while.
I'm good. Go.
Keith's got the giggles over here.
I do, yeah. Sorry.
So, naturally, not having any police. Now you're making me laugh.
No, pause this for you. Oh, shit. Sorry.
I do enjoy recording this podcast.